Hello students, welcome to the tutorial for demand, supply and equilibrium. I hope you have all gone through the lectures. At first we will learn how to derive the equilibrium price and quantity from demand and supply curve. If the demand and supply curve equations are given, how do we get the equilibrium quantity and equilibrium price? We already know that at equilibrium, quantity demanded is exactly equal to quantity supplied, or supply meets demand. So we can first set supply equal to demand. If we put the equations here, we can derive the value for P from here. So P is our price of computers. So this is our equilibrium price. Now, how do we calculate the equilibrium quantity? We can solve for the equilibrium quantity by simply substituting P equals to 8 into the supply or the demand equation. For instance, let's substitute it into the supply equation. And that's how we can get the equilibrium quantity. Next, we will learn how to predict effect on equilibrium price and quantity. What is the effect on the price of a DVD player and the quantity of DVD players sold if the price of DVD rises? What if the price of DVD falls? What if the supply of DVD players increase, or consumers' incomes decrease, or the wage rate of workers who produce DVDs increases? Or what if two of these effects work at the same time? We will solve each of the problems one by one. At first, I want to establish that every time I will have quantity of DVD players on the horizontal axis and price of DVD players on the vertical axis. We will put the initial demand curve and the initial supply curve. We know that the demand curve is always downward sloping and the supply curve is always upward sloping. And from we get the initial equilibrium point at the intersection of the demand and supply curve. If we draw a line from the equilibrium point to the price axis, we get the equilibrium price. And if we draw another line from the equilibrium point to the quantity axis, we get the equilibrium quantity. So now we have the initial demand, initial supply curve, and initial equilibrium price and initial equilibrium quantity. Now, what if the price of DVD rises? So let's be careful about it. We are talking about the market for DVD players. And now we are saying, what if the price of DVDs rises? So what do you think about the relationship between DVDs and DVD players? They are complements, right? We use DVD players to play DVDs. So if the price of DVDs rise, it means the quantity demanded for DVDs will decrease. So less people will buy DVDs. In that case, we will need less DVD players. So the demand for DVD players will decrease. Whenever we have a decrease in demand, we shift our demand curve to its left. This is our new demand curve. So we have our new equilibrium point at the intersection of our new demand curve and our supply curve. So if we draw a line from the equilibrium point to the price axis, we get our new equilibrium price. And if we draw another line, so here we see that the equilibrium price decreased. And if we draw another line from the equilibrium point to the quantity axis, we get the new equilibrium quantity. So if we compare this new equilibrium quantity with the initial equilibrium quantity, we can see that the equilibrium quantity decreased. Now, what if the price of DVD falls? When the price of DVD falls, it means the quantity demanded for DVDs will increase. So there will be more people demanding DVDs. So more people will need DVD players. In that case, we will have an increase in demand for DVD players. Whenever we have an increase in demand, we shift our demand curve to its right. So here is our new demand curve, and we get our new equilibrium point at the intersection of the new demand curve and the supply curve. So if we draw a line from the equilibrium point to the price axis, we get our new equilibrium price. So if we compare this new equilibrium price with the initial equilibrium price, we see that there has been a increase in price, equilibrium price of DVD players. Now, what if I draw another line from the equilibrium point to the quantity axis? We can get the new equilibrium quantity. We compare the new equilibrium quantity with the initial one, we see that there has been an increase in equilibrium quantity of DVD players. So we see due to a increase in price of DVDs, which is a complement for DVD players, we see an increase in equilibrium price of DVD players and also a increase in quantity for DVD players. Now let's look at the third situation when we have an increased supply of DVD players. So this is very simple because the question directly tells you that there has been an increase in supply. Whenever there is an increase in supply, we shift our supply curve to the right. So we will get our new equilibrium point at the intersection of our new supply curve and the demand curve. We can get our new equilibrium price here. So if we compare these between the initial equilibrium price and the new equilibrium price, we can see that the equilibrium price has decreased. And if we draw another line for the new equilibrium quantity, so if we compare between the new equilibrium quantity and the old equilibrium quantity, we can see that the equilibrium quantity has increased. So we can say that due to a increase in supply of DVD players, we have decrease in price of DVD players in the market and increase in quantity of DVD players bought and sold in the market. Now, what if the consumer's incomes decrease? So to know about the income effect on the price or quantity of DVD players, we need to first understand whether the DVD players are normal goods or inferior goods. So for general people, DVD players are normal goods. If people started earning more, then they would be more capable of buying DVD players. And in this case, consumers' income has decreased. So now their buying capability has decreased. So now they will demand less of DVD players. In this case, the demand curve will shift to the left to show the decrease in demand for DVD players. So here we have our new equilibrium price. Over here, if we compare between the old and the new equilibrium price, we can see that the price of DVD players in the market has decreased. And if we see the new equilibrium quantity and compare it with the initial one, we see that the equilibrium quantity has decreased. Now, what if the wage rate of workers who produce DVD players increase? So we know that workers is a factor of production and wage rate of worker is the cost of the workers. So increase in wage rate of workers means an increase in cost of production. And we already know when the cost of production increases, suppliers can supply less at any given price. So we shift our supply curve to the left, and here we have a new equilibrium at the intersection of the new supply curve and the demand curve. This is our new equilibrium price. If we compare it with the initial one, we see an increase in price of DVD players in the market. And now if we look at the new equilibrium quantity and if we compare it with the initial one, we see a decrease in equilibrium quantity of DVD players due to an increase in the wage rate of workers. Now, what if the wage rate of the workers increase and the price of DVD falls at the same time? Then we will have a situation where both the demand and supply curve will shift at the same time. And we also know that the effect of increasing wage rate is higher than the effect of DVD price falling. It means that we know that due to the increasing wage rate, we will have a decrease in supply. And due to the falling price of DVDs, we will have an increase in demand for DVD players. And the question mentions that the decrease in supply, the effect on the supply curve will be greater than the effect on the demand curve. Okay, so here for the increasing wage rate of the workers, we will see a leftward shift of the supply curve, and for the decrease in price of DVDs in the market, we will see a rightward shift of the demand curve. Here we can see that the change in the supply curve is greater than the change in the demand curve, because according to the question, the effect of increasing wage rate, which is the change in the supply curve, is greater than the effect of falling DVD price, which is the change in the demand curve. So now our new equilibrium point will be at the intersection of our new demand curve and our new supply curve. So our new equilibrium price will be here. We can see an increase in equilibrium price, and our new equilibrium quantity will be over here, and we can see a decrease in equilibrium quantity of DVD players in the market. This is another relative magnitude of change question for your practice. There is a long holiday coming during 21st of February, and holiday goers are seeing the opportunity and planning to buy tickets before the prices go up. So, due to the future expectation of price increase, people are demanding more of air tickets today. And at the same time, due to recent wage or salary cuts, some of the pilots have gone on a strike, which means that there is unavailability of pilots, which will affect the supply of flights. So it will decrease the supply of air tickets. And the question also tells us that the effect of demand is more than the effect of supply, which means that the change in demand will be greater than the change in supply. Now draw the demand and supply diagram for the market for air tickets and describe the change in equilibrium. Also, you can practice this math and try to find out the equilibrium price and quantity from the given equations of demand and supply. The solutions are given in the book. That's all from the tutorial. Thank you.